want to say thanks for your videos, man. Dude, you came out at a great time. It was real courageous, man, that you came out and started making videos at the time that you did. I'm almost positive I've seen your first video.
What were you doing at that point in time?
Well, I moved from New York to Texas. I'm not like a guy who goes on YouTube a lot, and I'm not into. I'm not on the internet a lot.
Yeah, I know you got your hands full, right? You're an entrepreneur, you're an athlete, you're a coach.
Right. Yeah. And I own a jiu-jitsu school. I've been training. I'm the first black belt under my teacher for Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And yeah, I have my own business and I have a good fight team. At that time, YouTube was, and I don't want to say fairly new because it wasn't fairly new, but it was like people were really using YouTube at that time, especially the atheists. Were using YouTube at that time. That was like a haven for atheists.
Yeah.
I would go on YouTube and I would see all these atheist men making videos. I mean, all the time. I mean, and some of them are just some of them are just absolutely classless. I mean, like, I mean, I'm not going to point fingers, but there was never a guy who, at that time on YouTube, could challenge besides William Lane Craig and a couple of the other guys, but I'm talking about mainstream. I'm talking about someone that people would actually listen to. I mean, William Lane Craig, everybody loves, but if you're gonna reach the people that are on the fence or looking for answers, I mean, you were that guy. You were that guy. Make no mistake. I mean, who else was there out there? And we would watch these videos, the atheist videos, and they would talk so They would talk so harshly about Christianity and conservative values.
You're so right. I had this whole culture that sort of sprung up to the point where atheist videos, anti-theism, was one of the highest rating viewing in that entire first semester, if you think of it that way. When atheism saw the opportunity there, and the footprint on the youth at that time was really hard to overstate. And first of all, let me say thank you for what you're saying. I mean, it's very encouraging, especially in the midst of a haze and a fog of such a venomous response. A lot of people don't realize this. The squeaky wheel really does get the oil, and people pay attention to a lot of the anti-videos. But what I really enjoyed over the years was a lot of people would write me letters, a lot of youth groups would write me letters, a lot of people would say very similar things to what you said, which is certainly encouraging. And I should have maybe at that time spent more time recognizing that, because in retrospect, what a lot of people do, I think, especially younger people, is they sort of take the temperature of the popularity of something and they make their opinion and they formulate their opinion around that rather than substantive issues. That's also a weapon wielded by atheism is a populist messaging and sort of attack the messenger, not the message. I saw them do that with some of the attempts before me to throw your hat in the ring. And you have to understand, if you do something like that, they really have no limits. The atheistic community has no limits to which they will slander, they will invent, they will create.
Exactly. No moral compass whatsoever. I mean, anything. And, basically the people, if you really look at it, the people who really like the atheist videos on YouTube are basically kids. I mean, they're young kids.
The kids.
I mean, if you look at some of the ridiculous videos, I mean, come on, who's going to take amazing atheists seriously? I mean, come on, look at the videos that God makes. Look at how he talks. Look at how he acts. I mean, he's basically an eighth grader.
It's very purposeful in its pandering to youth, because that's the formative years. And actually, if you look at the secular extremist movement, now that they've financed themselves and now that they've tried to mainstream themselves, you have the Foundation for Religious Freedom and all these organizations that have sprung up. They have purposely focused on the youth. They have these contests where you're supposed to make these videos about denouncing Christ, and of course they'll give you propaganda films to use. And I mean, so you're very right. That was a very orchestrated effort. And one of the things that I remember thinking at the time, it was an interesting time for me, because I was watching these videos thinking very much the same thing that you just described. I remember thinking, where's the pushback, the ideological approach to this? And it was like a barren Sahara desert wasteland where nobody was really throwing their hat in the ring. Very few people were.
Very few people. Okay, and that's why I said you have a very interesting story. Because at the time, no one was there to challenge mainstream atheism. Nobody. I mean, look, there were some good guys that had decent videos and a decent message. And I'd say decent, and I'm saying X. I mean, he's a young kid. Great intentions, right? Great intentions.
Right.
he was popular. He got popular. He had a lot of people following him, but he was more of a preacher. You could see what he was trying to do.
I agree. And some of them are very good.
You know, it's just like in the NFL. You got to fit the mold. You know, if you have a great athlete and you need a wide receiver, but, you know, he plays running back, it's not going to work out.
That's a very good analogy, man.
And, you know, modern-day Christians, you know, especially if you listen to a lot of William Lane Craig, they're just too, I don't know, they're too preachy, they're too pushy, and he came off that way. I mean, you have to have a guy who is willing to put himself out there. And I think that was what was unique about you. I mean, I remember your first video, Brock, and I was laughing, and it's not up on your channel anymore, at least I don't think it is.
It actually got removed, believe it or not.
Really?
In fact, I was flagged, and then it came back, and then it was flagged again. You know, it's interesting that we're on this subject. I had 17 videos removed from YouTube in my time making them. One of them, actually, interestingly enough, was only about my trying to advise young men to avoid porn. I'm just as susceptible to stuff. I'm a heterosexual man. I understand all those things. But my advice was, look, this stuff's going to end in disaster. They flagged that video.
One of the things that about the first video, I remember, because the atheist community, especially a lot of the mainstream guys, they're so arrogant. You know, here comes Brock Longley, right? So you make a video, you use an analogy about a bake sale. I remember.
Yeah.
And about the brownie sales. Now, I was laughing. I laughed for a long time over this video. The reactions that you got from that first video, which I thought was great, and I think you were just like sitting in your house with a hat on, you were just talking.
Yeah.
And the reception you got. Now, and listen, people didn't know whether to take you seriously or not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I remember that. They thought I was a scam channel at first. I remember that. Yeah.
Right. Now, what's interesting about that is to solicit a reaction like that is huge. Your message got under the skin of a lot of atheists because they didn't know how to deal with you. You were the first person who made them take a step back. It's like, you know, when you're fighting and you get caught with a good shot and you're like, oh, wait a minute. There was a couple other people that I said, hey, go check out Brock Longley's video, because they were watching William Lane Craig or whatever, and they watched you, and they said, hey, man, this guy's really good. This guy, you know, he makes really good videos. He's really good. But, you know, that's what you did. You know, you came out swinging almost, and you didn't come out politically correct, which was great. It was great.
I remember being very frustrated, Marks, about the fact that we have truth. And this has always frustrated me, actually. It frustrates me by way of conservatives, and it also frustrates me by way of Christian culture, where we feel the need to be on our heels, we feel the need to be apologetic, always defensive, at the point to which I remember watching, you mentioned the climate at YouTube at the time, where we were watching our children and our young people sacrificed on this altar of lies, destruction. We all know what happens when you walk down that self-serving, narcissistic, secular road. You end in disaster. You end in discontentment. You end in a huge level of suicide. You end in depression, purposeless lives. I remember thinking to myself, at what point does the Christian say, hey, I need to apologize for this hopeful, truthful message that is offering a pushback against what is, quite frankly, a poison to the human soul? And yet so often the chase for popularity, and more important than that, the chasing after the carrot of the stick to get these people to like you, they're never going to like you. You are salt to their wounds. You are a reminder of a pursuit of righteousness, when that's literally what they're running from. I remember knowing that they were going to come after me with every piece of weaponry in the arsenal, and I was always surprised by people who thought that they wouldn't. I mean, if you look at a lot of people who have sprung up, you know, over the years, a lot of them have faltered, and it's because they simply can't respond to such a wave of disdain and dislike. They attribute that to themselves. And that's a mistake.
People, yeah, definitely. You are 100% right. And that's, you know, even on my Facebook, man, it mentions there's heroes that you can have. And I put who my heroes are. You're actually on that list. You share company with, like, my teacher, but you're on there. And
that's very flattering, Marcus. I really appreciate that. That's a very nice thing to say.
When you did start making videos, you can always judge how effective you are by the reaction you get. And, you know, you came out swinging, and the reaction you got was crazy. I mean, if you think about it, people created YouTube channels. Now, I don't know names that created YouTube channels that I've never heard of. They had one video that was in response to, you know, your videos. Their whole entire YouTube career was to defeat Brock Lumley.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember that.
I remember putting comments on your, like sending you messages and saying, "Hey, look, man, whatever you're doing, keep doing it," because
I remember that was very encouraging, Marcus. Yeah, you know what's interesting about what you're saying is a lot of people don't realize the extent of the shrapnel that you really do get with these guys, because again, they're like a dog in a corner. They're very ferocious in a way. And I had my family contacted. There's been almost every site I've ever had has been hacked, including my YouTube channel 4 times. My Facebook page has been shut down many times over. Multiple times I've had to recreate the platform because there's been flaggings. I've had my mother contacted. I mean, the level to crazy. Some of the frustration I remember reading in the comment section is that I wouldn't respond to a lot of stuff. That was what they were always frustrated by. But I kind of realized that there wasn't any desire to have a conversation with me. There was just a desire to sort of defame and discredit.
Every time I seen you respond, your response was met with just blatant, childish, hateful remarks. I mean, there was no discussion. There was no debate. It was just a bunch of just cannon fodder, just nonsense of, and you're this, and you're stupid, and whatever. It's like nobody actually wanted to have a debate. Now again, your job wasn't to debate. I don't know where people got that.
It's an interesting time for me to say something very, very nice about you, actually, Marcus. There is a handful of people. I'd say there's probably 50 people. I have 150 videos on that channel now. There's somewhere like 50 people that through the years I have seen get in the trenches. And I've had the opportunity in some cases to talk about this on a national platform, and I've mentioned this before. The real heroes in all of those formats, be it any kind of megaphone to the world that really takes chances and speaks truth to what you might consider to be today's power. The people that get in there and really ruffle feathers and kind of interact with the substance in the comment sections, to some extent, and this is often understated, those guys are the bravest of the brave, because I know for a fact what kind of attack comes, and then these guys are willing to get down in the trenches, in the mire, in the muck, and confront the stuff. And people don't really realize how important that is, because your average drive-by guy, say here, a 16-year-old kid, you might have heard some. Oftentimes, a lot of the traffic that I would get online would be, originally they would hear some video of some guy who hated my guts. So what the atheist doesn't realize is when they make that video, the first Google search they make is my name or my channel. And so I get a chance to talk to that person, which I love. And so they're kind of counteracting what they hope to do, because the truth be told, they would make me out to be such a villain that there was no way I could possibly be that much of a villain. So when they came to the channel, what they would see is a relatively normal person just making a case against atheism. And then what they would immediately do is they would go to the comment section. And at that point, it was people like you that would speak to hundreds of people you didn't even realize what you were speaking to. And I remember always having such a deep respect for people like you. There are so many people like you, some of which actually started channels. When people got in the trenches, yes, they weren't making the videos, but the people that were perusing those videos, if people like you didn't get in the trenches and do the battle, all they would have seen was the hate. They wouldn't have seen the pushback. I don't think people realize the echoing ramifications of the time you spent doing that. So personally, I want you to hear, I really do thank you for that. It's something that I sincerely mean when I say that.
I will say this. The reason why I didn't make a channel was because you already did. But see, here's the thing. We need to be realistic. That type of medium is not me. I don't think I could generate and be taken seriously, and because there's a certain amount of risk that you take when you do this, and that's why I had so much respect for you. But I was close to making a channel. I was close to speaking out about it, but I knew that I wouldn't be taken seriously. And this is before I even saw your video or even, talked to you. When you did it, you were the guy. I don't think that anybody can argue that, you held the torch for a couple of years against these guys. I mean, you were, like I said, man, you came out swinging, and, you just, I think you inspired a lot of people. You did a lot of good things. And like I said, I am not by any means a YouTube guy or, whatever, but I do follow the atheist movement. I follow it closely. And you were the man, dude. I mean, you did it. I hope that you continue to do it, because, you need a guy that is logical and that